City Council, thank you for joining us. Can everyone hear? Okay, I'll try to speak up. Carrie, can you turn on the mic a little louder? Our tech team is innovative. Okay, is this better? Better? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll to ascertain the presence of a quorum?
Thank you, Madam President. Councilor Baker. Yes. Councilor Campbell. Councilor Thiomo. Councilor Asabi George. Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Jackson.
Here.
Councilor Lamatina. Councilor Linehan.
Here.
Councilor McCarthy.
Here.
Councilor O'Malley.
Present.
Councilor Presley. Present. Councilor Wu.
Present.
And Councilor Zakem. Madam President, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, I'd like to ask all councilors and guests to please rise, and I'll invite up Councilor Asabi George to introduce our faith leader for the day. After the invocation is delivered, please remain standing, and Councilor Asabi George will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, everyone. As a dock girl, I'm honored and proud to welcome Father John Curry, born and raised in St. Mark's Parish of Dorchester. Father Curry is one of 12 children with a large extended family, and quite specifically has two aunts that were both teachers of mine and probably Councilor Baker's at St. Margaret's Grammar School. One who I loved dearly, and one that used to accuse us of stealing all sorts of things, especially her red pen. She was particularly fond of her red pen. Currently, Father Curry is serving in Dorchester as the pastor of Dorchester's tri-parishes, Holy Family, St. Peter, and Blessed Mother Teresa of Calcutta, also known as St. Margaret's Church in Dorchester. Father Curry is a graduate of St. Mark's Elementary School, of Boston Latin Academy, and of Lake Forest College in Illinois, where he double majored in business and economics. After a brief career in the financial world, he entered St. John's Seminary in Brighton, where he was ordained as a priest in 1997. After serving in parish ministry in Weymouth, he returned home to Dorchester just over a year ago to serve our community. Father Curry is an important partner to the city, supporting the Boston Police Department's community policing efforts and our overall work to address and end violence in our neighborhoods. He participates in BPD's Peace Walks and even brought back the Bowdoin Geneva Peace Walk. I respect Father Curry's passion and efforts in ending violence and addressing trauma. Please welcome, and a good old Dorchester welcome, to Father John Curry.
Thank you, Councilor. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for that very kind welcome, Councilor. And I must admit, when she was mentioning my aunts, we felt the same way. So God forgive me. Let us pray. Gracious God, whose providential care, love, and mercy knows no boundaries and is generously given to all people, we ask your blessing upon the work of the City Council today, as well as the work of the entire city. May the deliberations and discussions of this day know your guidance and wisdom. May they be marked by mutual respect by those who will partake in them. May they remain focused on the best interests, common good, and welfare of the people the Council is blessed to serve. May they continue to foster justice, love, and peace in our community. May they reject all forms of hatred, bigotry, or violence, which only seek to tear down and divide. May they uphold the inalienable rights and liberties of every man, woman, and child who calls Boston home or visits this great city. To you, O Lord, we lift our souls and the needs and concerns of your people with complete faith and trust in your almighty power. Keep us humble in your sight and in the sight of others today and every day. And for this we pray. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Councilor Sabi George.
Take care, Father. Good to see you.
We have several special presentations today before our formal business. But before we start those, I do want to give a special thank you to the Boston branch of the NAACP for joining the council earlier at our council offices in City Hall and giving a deep presentation on the work ahead of us. So thank you to President Tanisha Sullivan. And now I'll bring back Councilor Sabi George for the first special recognition.
Thank you again. Today I am very honored to recognize Learn to Cope, an incredible organization that has done amazing work supporting the loved ones of those who are suffering with substance use disorders. As the chair of the Committee on Homelessness, Mental Health, and Recovery, organizations that provide support to those impacted by substance use are very close to my heart. Addiction is not a struggle that affects a single person. Addiction is multi-layered and impacts families and communities. Through her own personal experience, Joanne Peterson has inspired others. I thank her for providing a much-needed safe space for families by establishing Learn to Cope. Since 2004, Learn to Cope has been on the front lines of the growing opioid epidemic. By offering resources, Joanne and her team, and Vicki is with her today, have created a place where families know they can go to find help and support from those with similar struggles. Without Learn to Cope, this type of place may not exist. Over the past 13 years, Learn to Cope has positively impacted the families in the city of Boston and across the Commonwealth. In weekly meetings, families and friends of those struggling with addiction gather to share stories and support each other. Learn to Cope holds meetings in Dorchester on Thursdays from 7 to 8:30 at the IBEW local union at 256 Freeport Street. If you or a loved one is struggling with substance use or has been affected by a loved one's substance use, I encourage you to reach out to Learn to Cope at 508-738-5148 by phone or visit their website at learn2cope.org. Learn to Cope gives families the tools and strength to help face substance use head on. Today, I'd like to appreciate all that they have done for our community, and please welcome and join in welcoming you today, Joanne, if you'd come up, and Vicki as well. Thank you. So on behalf of the Boston City Council, I present a resolution extending our appreciation to you, to Joanne, to Vicki, and to the organization Learn to Cope for the support that you've given all of the families in the city of Boston. Joanne. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are very humbled and honored to be here today. And it's been a long road. Dealing with this, with addiction and substance use disorder, mental illness for many years, and then also, dealing with a lot of the losses that families are experiencing. It's actually a nice break today to be here. We've lost just 5 kids just in the last week and a half from the ages of 21 to 30. And I don't mean to be sad, but this is the world we live in. And, this epidemic is all across the country. It's not just in Massachusetts. It's everywhere. And we're really proud and pleased to be able to take care of those families. We know that recent reports say that the overdose fatalities have gone down, and that's good news. And that's because of nasal naloxone. but the overdoses have gone up, and people are being saved. And every life matters. Every human being's life matters. And that's why we're here, to take care of any and every human being, any family, every family that comes to us for help. I want to also talk about the orphaned children out there. There's many children that have deceased parents or parents that are out struggling, and there's many grandparents that are struggling to raise them. So, you know, if everybody could keep them in their thoughts and prayers, along with all the families that are losing their loved ones. And we're happy and humbled to accept this award, but we're accepting it in honor of all those families that are dealing with addiction, mental illness, substance use disorder, violence, domestic abuse, anything that's going on in their lives. I'm going to turn it over to Vicki. She's also a longtime member and staff member now of Learn to Cope. And I just want to thank you so much and thank the City Council, all of you, for this honor today. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wasabi George, and thank you for your work that you do with the homeless, of which my daughter is a homeless person. 6 years ago, I walked into my first Learn to Cope meeting, not knowing where to turn, and Learn to Cope literally saved my life and the life of my family. And my daughter is still active in her substance use, and so we're still struggling as a family. And as a result, I am now raising my granddaughter. I've had her since the day she was born. And so Learn to Cope is a fluid organization. So now we're going from our loved ones, our children, to now into our grandchildren, because so many of us are raising our grandchildren because of substance use disorder and mental illness. So thank you so much for this award. We'll keep fighting the fight, and thank you very much.
We'll do a group picture.
Forward a little bit.
Squeeze in.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Next up, if Councilor Baker could join us.
Thank you, Madam President. Jay, will you come up and join us, please, with your family? So Jay's a constituent of mine. He's a long-time supporter, and I feel like I keep good company with Jay as a supporter. On August 3rd, Jay Richards, a 19-year veteran of the city's transportation department, led a rescue helping to carry a woman down 6 flights of stairs after her North End condo building caught fire. Jay's an assistant parking enforcement supervisor, so he's looking at traffic and parking. He's not a firefighter, but he had, you know, the courage to run into this building when he saw there was need. It was in the North End this particular day, telling the residents that they had to move their cars for an annual feast that night. Well, at work, he saw smoke pouring out of the roof of a building. He ran in, banging on the doors, when he found a woman and her caregiver still inside. Jay and the firefighter on scene strapped the woman to a chair and carried her down the flights of stairs to a lobby across the way. The woman got out safely, but Richards ended up in the hospital and was taken to Mass General for minor injuries. So today, I want to thank Jay for his heroism on August 3rd. A lot of times, city workers get beat up in the press and in popular opinion. So I wanted to make sure that we brought Jay here with his family to make sure that people know that This is what city workers do. They care about the city, they live in the city, and I just wanted to make sure that we did this for Jay. And I'm going to read a little bit of the resolution. I won't get into it very much, but for his bravery and heroism in assisting a woman out of a burning building and alerting the other residents of the fire. So, Jay, come on up. I'd like you to say a couple words if you can.
Thank you all. This is truly an honor to be here today and given this resolution. I don't think I did anything differently than any other Bostonian would have done. I truly believe that that's the city that I raised my kids in. That's what we do. We look out for one another. This was definitely a team effort. I wouldn't have been able to do what I did if it wasn't for the firefighter that stayed up on the floor with me, the maintenance worker that stayed on the floor with me, and the health care worker that were there, both of them health care workers that were there also. So it was truly a team effort to get her down. And again, when you're out on the streets, you're thrown into different situations and you handle them. I handle them the way that I see fit as far as what is right by the residents and the neighborhoods that I'm working in. So thank you all again. I appreciate it.
Should ask if you can go to school a little bit later. Get a couple more days off.
Jay.
And now if Councilor Jackson could join us at the podium.
See ya. Should I just do the two in a row? Thank you so much, Council President Wu. I'm very full today because, again, I think it is significant and it's an honor to be in a space that our council has not met in so long, since 1822. And I just want to take this opportunity to acknowledge a great Bostonian. It has been said, and I probably will use this quote for both of the groups that I'm going to honor. Senator Kamala Harris said, "If you ever wondered what you would have done during the civil rights movement, this is your opportunity to find out." If you ever wondered what you would have done during the civil rights movement, this is your opportunity to find out. Those are not my words. Those are the words of an amazing woman, Senator Kamala Harris. Today, we have an opportunity to be in the presence of someone who did something, who didn't stand idly by, who stood up and changed the course of history in our city, in one of the trades. We have before us Mr. James T. Garrett, Jr. And if you don't know him, you should know him. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mr. Garrett. In 1974, James T. Garrett filed a class action suit against the Union Local 7 International Association of Bridge Structural Ornamental Iron Workers for discrimination against minority iron workers. Mr. Garrett saw the injustices created by the union's trainee program, where one was created for whites and the other for minorities. This is in our city, in the city of Boston, ladies and gentlemen. While white and black ironworkers were distinguished by the color of their union cards, the black workers were also taught a lesser level of math than their white counterparts. Failure to comply with the program's itinerary would prevent one from becoming a member of the union. Mr. Garrett acted against the status quo with courage and the will to shed light on this issue of unfair working conditions for people of color. In 1980, the case known as Garrett versus Local 7 International Association of Bridge, Structural, and Ornamental Ironworkers, the United States District Court for the District of Massachusetts ruled that Local 7 had been discriminating against minorities, seeking job referrals and job training, which violates federal law. As a result of the ruling, the case, black ironworkers, in this case, black ironworkers who had participated in Local 7 beginning in 1970 were eligible to receive back pay and relief. We now have a program called the Building Pathways Program. But that program didn't start till about 5 years ago. We need to be thinking about what we are doing every day in our city to advance our time in the civil rights movement. What we can continue to do in our city to ensure that equity and opportunity prevail. And so it's important that we're in this space. And it's important that we honor a great Bostonian. I don't know if there's a Hyde Parkian. I don't know if that's a word. But we honor you, Mr. Garrett, for what you've done, for the doors that you've opened, not only in the ironworkers, but in all of the trades. And not only for people of color, for women and for other Bostonians who didn't have a shot. And so it is important that we give folk their flowers while they can still smell them, while we honor those who have made a difference in our city. So I would like Mr. Garrett and his lovely wife, his daughter, and his grandchildren to come forward and be honored by the Boston City Council. It is your day, Mr. Garrett. Today we are declaring James T. Garrett Jr. Day in the city of Boston.
I'd like to thank the council, Mr. Teal Jackson, for recognizing this day. But it's not for just me. There's many others behind me that fought this fight. A lot of them not here today, but I'm up here in their place, and I hope the fight continues because there's still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of things out there that's not being said. Nobody knows what goes on. But I still try to fight and stick with a lot of guys who's out there willing to participate. So I'd like to say thank you, committee, and everybody who recognized this. Thank you very much.
And I don't particularly like heights, so you're...
Thank you again so much. So this is an exception and a deviation from our normal procedures, but Councilor Jackson has a second special recognition just given the magnitude and the importance of what took place in Boston over the weekend. We really wanted to make sure that he could celebrate two wonderful people and the entire movement that they have been organizing and leading.
Thank you so much for the exception. And again, Mr. Garrett, we thank you. I am afraid of heights. So in addition to the civil rights work that you did, you actually broke something that I'm afraid of. I'd like to call up Monica Cannon, Dee Delgado, and Angelina Camacho. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's from the Declaration of Independence. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. First Amendment. With liberty and justice for all. These important documents didn't acknowledge women, and these important documents did not acknowledge people of color at the time that they were written. And I am happy today to again quote a black woman who was a senator. If you ever wondered what you would have done during the civil rights movement, this is your opportunity to find out. Senator Kamala Harris. Monica Cannon, Dee Delgado, Angelina Camacho, in the face of a president who gave a false equivalency of those who hate with those who are standing up to hate, you stood forward and put the city of Boston on an international stage and showed us how powerful we are when we turn to each other and not on each other in the most difficult times. You stood up against white supremacy, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, sexism, homophobia, and hatred in our country and our city. But you didn't stop there. You dealt with the issues that we have in the city of Boston, where we have our own gaps, from Back Bay to Roxbury, where there is a 33-year difference in life expectancy. In Back Bay, you live to 91.9, and in Roxbury, you live to 58.9, lower than the life expectancy of Iraq and Gambia. You stood up for the 4,000 homeless students and the underfunding in our public schools and those who had been displaced from the Long Island shelter. But most importantly, you stood up and showed why we should follow black women and women of color, and why that's, and you can clap, that's an applause line. It is our time to understand what our place is. And as a man, sometimes we need to sit down and allow our sisters, step back and let our sisters do what they should do And their proper place is in leadership roles and in putting together movements that put together 45,000 like-minded individuals who said that Boston as a city is about love and not about hate. And for that, I thank you. I am honored to be among you, but I'm most honored to count myself not as a leader in this regard, but as a follower of these great women. Monica, Dee Dee, and Angie, I'm going to present these, and then the next voices you'll hear will be theirs. This is a recognition of your successful organization of the Fight Supremacy March and Rally, where you brought together over 40,000 people in the city of Boston to raise their voices and unite as one against hatred and bigotry. And today, the Boston City Council declares Fight Supremacy Day on August 19th, 2017. You are the best that we have to offer. Thank you so much.
So first, I want to say thank you. Thank you to Councilor Jackson, the City Council, more specifically, Councilor Presley and Councilor Wu for your support. Although they weren't interested in being recognized, they donated behind the scenes, so thank you. I'll be brief to allow my sisters to speak, but what I will say, the first thing I want to say is that Black Lives Matter. And I have to say that not as a protest, but because they do, and it needs to be known. And although we did the march and the rally, and it was this amazing journey, we need to also recognize that that same ideology exists here in the city of Boston and affects people of color in Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan on a regular basis. There were over 10 shootings during the time that we were preparing for this march and rally. And I struggled between the march and showing up to crime scenes to support families. And I think I want to reiterate that message that, it's amazing that 40,000 people came, and that's something that Black women were able to do alongside 26 organizers from across this country. So I appreciate the recognition, but also just want to say thank you to Black Lives Matter Cambridge, thank you to Black Lives Matter New Jersey, thank you to Black Lives Matter Toronto, thank you to Black Lives Matter California, because that's what community looks like for us. 26 organizers organized 45,000 people in the city of Boston, but the work continues, and I run an organization called Violets in Boston, and we're going to continue that work here in the city of Boston. And again, thank you.
Gracias a todos. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to Madam President, our counselors. I am so thankful to be here with my sisters. I won't be before you long because the work continues. I was so humbled and honored to just be a part in any way of the spirit of solidarity, peace, and love that conquered hate. We were the light together that pushed back the darkness. But even though we were able to push back over almost 70 events, as you could probably tell in the news, they said that they're going to go online now. We actually showed the world together what it means to stand up and stand together. Right now, the work continues in many different ways. I'm supporting a family right now as a Jewish couple, a same-gender loving couple who's fighting just to keep their own foster children because DCF doesn't understand that that no matter who you are, you can create family. And so I'm fighting with them to be able to keep their family of young people of color who have found two loving parents. And no matter who they are, they love them. And so right now I stand not only for them, but also all of the inequities that we face, because the work is not only done by the people who paved the way for us, our seniors. We continue the work for our young people, 3 of whom are sitting right there with me. my son and my nephews, and all of the children in our public education system that I fight for every day. This is not new for me. 20 years of service in our community continues, but it must expand. Leadership must expand with the 40,000 who marched with us. And so my challenge is still, the march was on August 19th. What will you do today to move the message forward that love trumps hate? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dee Dee Delgado, and I'm 1/6 representation of Black Lives Matter Cambridge. I am also on the strategy table for Black Lives Matter Global Network. So this work, as my sisters before me have said, is longstanding and incumbent. I want to very quickly address something that often is an elephant in the room, especially in these spaces. Earlier, an award was accepted, and it was paraphrasing that all lives do matter. And I wholeheartedly agree with the fact that all lives do matter. Never understood why, when I say Black Lives Matter, why there's a pushback if all lives truly do matter. I would ask, and then even demand, that you all challenge yourselves. We are being honored today for leading 45,000 people when it was just, as Monica said, 26 of us trying to figure out how we can organize that many individuals. On behalf of Black Lives Matter Cambridge, and on behalf of myself, I do live in Roxbury. I've been organizing here even though I organize for Cambridge as well. And I'm just concerned at what kind of precedents we're setting when we are celebrating the 3 Black women who are holding that space, but yet there are at least 33 people that I personally, along with a bail team, have bailed out for doing the same things we've done. So I would feel uncomfortable accepting this award when City Council definitely has the ability to lay pressure on the mayor, when you as a city and a community of beautiful faces have the ability to lay pressure on the mayor. If we're 45,000 strong, why are we leaving 33 people behind? If we say all lives matter, I'm all for it, but Black Lives Matter, we're bailing out all lives. I couldn't go up to the bail commissioner and say, is that one a Nazi or not, right? So I would challenge this council to appeal to the mayor and to DA Conley and to even the police commissioner about the way we police Black and brown bodies in this city and the way that bail is set up here in this city. So I appreciate Tito and Michelle and Ayanna for including me in this, but I will continue to be a silent partner until the work is actually completed. Thank you.
This is like the cookout. Thank you.
There's a ton of people waiting for all of these things. I'm gonna just bang through. YBB's waiting. There's, yeah, we'll bang, this is all filed. We'll go back.
Thank you. On to our agenda for today, starting with approval of the minutes from last meeting. Are there any changes or amendments? Seeing and hearing none, the minutes stand approved, and we'll begin with communications from His Honor the Mayor. Madam Clerk.
Docket number 1124, message in order to reduce the appropriation of the reserve for collective bargaining by $81,222 to provide funding for the Inspectional Services Department for the FY18 increases contained within the collective bargaining agreements between the City of Boston and the Office of the Professional Employees International Union, Local 6. Would you like me to read?
Chair Salmon, would you like both items read in? Madam Clerk, could you please read the next one as well?
Thank you, Madam President. Docket number 1125, message and order approving a supplemental appropriation of $81,222 for Inspectional Service Department to cover the FY18 cost items contained within the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Boston and the offices of the Professional Employees International Union Local 6, filed in the office of the City Clerk on August 21st, 2017.
On dockets 1124 and 1125, Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, Councilor Siomo.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for suspension and passage of dockets 1124 and 1125. This follows the same wage pattern as other agreements that the city has agreed with the unions on, and we have passed in previous sessions. It's a contract that ended June of 2017 that is included in the collective bargaining agreement, which the city has put aside. So we're drawing from the collective bargaining agreement for FY17, and then there's a successor agreement from FY18 through FY20. So I move suspension and passage.
Thank you, Councilor Siomo. Is there any additional question or comment? Seeing none, Councilor Siomo moves for suspension of the rules. We'll do each of these separately, starting with and passage of docket 1124. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1124 has been passed. Councilor Siomo moves for suspension and passage of docket 1125. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 1125 has been passed as well.
Docket number 1126, message in order to accept the benefits of the City of Boston, for the benefit of the City of Boston, a donation of office furniture for use by the Mayor's Office of Economic Development. The office furniture, specifically office chairs, will be used to update the office, which will further facilitate the office's service and benefit to the residents of Boston.
The Chair will move for
Suspension and passage.
Chair will move for suspension and passage. I believe, thanks to our liaison, that this is about 8 chairs, so we would like the administration to be able to move on that as quickly as possible. All in favor for docket 1126, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1126 has been passed. Reports of public officers and others. Madam Clerk, if you could read docket 1127 through 1136. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Docket number 1127, notices received from the Mayor of the reappointment of Jesse Jeter as a member of the Boston Employment Commission for a term expiring July 1st, 2019. Docket number 1128, notices received from the Mayor of the reappointment of Ann Conley as an Associate Commissioner to the Parks and Recreation Commission for the term expiring January 17th, 2021. Docket number 1129, notices received from the Mayor of the reappointment of Onyen Yong as a member of the Boston Fair Housing Commission for a term expiring July 1st, 2020. Docket number 1130, notices received from the Mayor of the reappointment of Igor Badiki Azidi, Jr., as a member of the Boston Fair Housing Commission for a term expiring July 1st, 2020. Docket number 1131, notices received from the Mayor of the reappointment of Michelle Velez Rosario as a member of the Boston Fair Housing Commission for a term expiring July 1st, 2020. Docket number 1132, notices received from the Mayor of his absence from the city from 9 a.m. on Wednesday, August 2nd until 12 p.m. on Saturday, August 8th, 2017. Docket number 1133, communication was received from Brian P. Golden, Director of the Boston Planning and Development Agency, regarding proposed minor modifications to the South End Urban Renewal Plan, project number Mass R-56, with respect to parcel 200. Docket number 1134, communication was received from Brian P. Golden, Director of the Boston Planning and Development Agency, regarding proposed minor modifications to the South Cove Urban Renewal Plan, project number Mass R 11-92 with respect to parcel P12. And docket number 1135, notices received from the Auditing Department providing the fiscal year 2018 payroll allotment schedules for all city departments. And docket number 1136, communication was received from Ronald W. Rackow, Assessing Commissioner, of the appointment of Benison Pina as an Assistant Assessor.
Dockets number 1127 through 1136 will be placed on file.
Docket number 1137, the constable bonds of Jorge Mendoza and Carl Jean-Louis have been duly approved by the Collector Treasurer, were received and approved under the usual terms and conditions.
Similar to previous approvals by the council, Chair moves for suspension and passage under the usual terms and conditions of docket 1137. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Docket 1137 has been passed under the usual terms and conditions.
Would you like me to read 1138 to 1140?
Please, the rest of the dockets in this section, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. Docket number 1138, notice is received from the City Clerk in accordance with Chapter 6 of the Ordinances of 1979 regarding actions taken by the Mayor on papers acted upon by the City Council at its July 12, 2017 meeting. Docket number 1139, notice is received from the City Clerk in accordance with Chapter 6 of the Ordinances of 1979 regarding action taken by the Mayor on papers acted upon by the City Council at its meeting of August 2nd, 2017. And docket number 1140, notice is received from the Mayor of his absence from the City from 9 p.m. on Monday, August 21st until Tuesday, August 22nd.
Dockets number 1138 through 1140 will be placed on file. Matters recently heard for possible action.
Docket number 0918, order for hearing regarding healthcare provider parking permits in the City of Boston.
Chair recognizes Chair of the Committee on City and Neighborhood Services and Veterans Affairs, Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you very much, Madam President. We held a meeting yesterday regarding docket number 0918 regarding healthcare provider parking permits in the City of Boston. Hospice care, physical therapy care providers, and home care workers are having serious issues when trying to deliver their services in resident areas that have resident parking. I believe that we had a very powerful meeting yesterday. We had Commissioner Shea, Commissioner McCosh, as well as Commissioner Fiandaca. I believe that through several working sessions we can figure out a way to bring this to reality, but through the chair, before I request that would be put into stays in committee, through the chair, I would like to have Councilor Zakim and Councilor Flaherty, if they'd like to speak on the matter.
Thank you, Councilor McCarthy. Councilor Zakim, you have the floor.
Madam President, I want to thank Chairman McCarthy for holding this hearing and having a really great discussion with all the relevant city departments, as well as representatives from 1199 SEIU and other advocates for the home health care workers and patients. I think we got a lot out there in the general sense of information, talking about what some other cities have done. I'm looking forward to a working session in the coming weeks to really start hammering out some policy changes, both possibly administratively or legislatively through this body. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zakim. Councilor Flaherty, would you like to speak? Would anyone else like to comment? Docket number 0918 will remain in the Committee on City and Neighborhood Services and Veterans Affairs. Motions, orders, and resolutions.
Docket number 1141, Councilor Zakim offered the following resolution urging the extension of temporary protected status.
Councilor Zakim, you have the floor.
Recognizing and thanking Central Presente and their membership here who have waited patiently to hear this matter. It's incredibly important and something we've worked on together with this organization, Central Presente, and other advocates throughout Boston, throughout the immigrant community. This body effectively passed a resolution in support of temporary protected status, or TPS, for Haitian nationals a few short months ago, and I would say perhaps surprisingly, the Trump administration extended TPS in that situation. I like to take as much credit as we can for lending our voice on that. But this is for folks right now, what's being under consideration is for folks from other countries who are currently enjoy temporary protected status in the United States, thousands of whom are in the greater Boston area. What this means, temporary protected status, to just do a quick summary, is a designation for folks where it's unsafe for them to return to their country of origin, whether it's because of natural disasters like earthquakes, because of an epidemic, because of civil war or criminal violence. It's unsafe. This is a fairly simple standard, I think, and something that the United States of America has tried to do with varying success throughout our history, is to be a safe haven, to be a refuge, to be an asylum for people from across the world, and we need to continue doing that. And what this resolution does is it adds the voice of the Boston City Council and the people of the city of Boston to the millions across this country who are advocating for reasonable policies, for policies of inclusiveness and against discrimination. I think it's been quite clear, and we heard from some of the other presenters earlier, that this presidential administration, President Donald Trump and his team, have gone out of their way to discriminate against immigrants, to turn people away, to deport more people. And not only is this wrong, not only does this go against, I think, what the United States stands for, certainly what Boston stands for, but it's stupid. It's silly policy. It's costing us billions and billions of dollars of economic activity. It's incredibly expensive to carry out these deportations, to remove people forcibly from, in many cases, communities like ours where they have lived for decades, where they have participated, where they live with us, where their children go to school with us. So I think it's absolutely a duty of the Boston City Council and the people of the city of Boston to speak up on this, to add our voice, and that's what I hope to do today. I will move for suspension and passage of this today so that we can add our voice and send this to Washington, to our representatives in Congress, and to the President and to the State Department and Homeland Security Department that have responsibility for this program, and ask them to apply really the rule of the law. We're not asking for anything special here. The standard is it safe to return to the country? And right now, it's quite clear that this president doesn't care about that, and he just wants to discriminate and get people out of this country. So we need to add our voice and be heard on that. Thank you. I would ask my colleagues to join supporting this, and like I said, I will move for suspension and adoption, I believe is the proper term today. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councillor Zachem. Councillor Presley, would you like to speak or sign on? Councillor Presley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I wish to thank Centro Presente and Councillor Zachem for your leadership and your collaboration, your outstanding work on a matter that affects so many in our city as we collectively work to affirm and maintain the immigration status of our neighbors. And I just want to share some numbers from the BPDA so when we say neighbors, folks really understand the impact of who stands to be affected here potentially. In the city of Boston, we have some 14,700 El Salvadorians. We have 3,000 Hondurans. We have 1,000 Nicaraguans. In total, the Trump administration will decide whether to terminate the immigration status of over 300,000 immigrants from El Salvador, Honduras, and most imminently, Haiti. So these are our neighbors, and we must stand in solidarity with them. We thank you for your many contributions to our communities, to our culture in the city of Boston, and to our economy. Again, I thank Councillor Zachem for his leadership in Centro Presente, for your organizing and mobilization efforts on so many issues, and this one especially.
Thank you, Councillor Presley. Madam Clerk, please add Councillor Presley's name, and Councillor Jackson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And I would like to extend congratulations to my friend Councillor Zachem for just being so consistent and steadfast in the work that we should be doing for those who have come here. Some chose to come, but many were forced to have to come here based on what's going on in their country. I think it's critical, as Councilor Presley noted, El Salvador, Honduras, and Haiti. The violence that's going on in Honduras is actually more extreme than probably any place in the world right now. And so what we do with the most vulnerable populations, whether or not we stand up for the most vulnerable populations, is a reflection of who we are, and not standing up is complicity. And so I thank Councillor Zachem for, again, partnering with an amazing organization, Centro Presente, and the great work that they continue to do, but for keeping these, who we are as the City of Boston at front of mind when it comes to these issues. Please add my name, and this is the work that we need to continue to do in our city, and it's a reflection of who and what we are, and we are stronger together than we are apart. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Madam Clerk, please add Councillor Jackson's name. So just to minimize confusion, I'll take sign-ons at this point, and then speaking after. So, Madam Clerk, could you please add Councillor Baker's name, Councillor Siomo, Councillor Sabi George, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Linehan, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor O'Malley. Please add the chair's name. And would anyone else like to speak on this resolution? At this time, Councillor Zakhem moves for suspension and adoption of docket 1141. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1141 has been adopted.
Docket number 1142, Councilors Presley and Zakhem offered the following resolution, calling for public officials to condemn pro-Nazi, white nationalist, and white supremacist ideologies.
Councillor Presley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to begin by, we've done so much of this already this morning, but I do want to begin by celebrating and saluting all those who made that 45,000 strong statement on Saturday. The visionaries, the volunteers, our Boston Police Department, the Parks Department, everyone that played a role and participated in Saturday's peace rally. It was a beautiful and powerful statement that we made collectively in rejecting hate, bigotry, and white supremacy. And I don't think we can say that word enough, because in order to fight something, you must first name that thing. And so it was a powerful statement that we made. I want to thank our governor and our mayor for the proclamation that they partnered on, similar in its aim to the resolution that Councillor Zakhem and I are offering today. I want to thank the NAACP for their leadership in what they do every day, and for outlining today a path forward for the work that remains, and for highlighting to myself and Councillor Zakhem a resolution that had been passed by the Illinois State Senate, very similar, again, to the one that we're offering today. And I do think it's important to note that the impetus for Saturday's event was that we were standing in solidarity with Charlottesville. So I do just want to name them in this body. That white supremacist, white nationalist gathering was the largest gathering of its kind in 2 decades. And so it is so important that we continue to fight supremacy and to push back. This resolution does not bar or contradict our First Amendment right to speech. And again, I'm so very proud to be doing this in partnership with my good friend and a steadfast ally in the social justice movement, Josh Zakhem, who is also the chair of the Special Committee on Civil Rights for the Boston City Council. And I want to thank Councillor Wu for her leadership in resurrecting this committee, which had been dissolved. But in light of the draconian policies and the hate speech, the wave of bigotry throughout the country, and much of it coming out of the White House, Councillor Wu, in her good stead, decided that we should resurrect this committee so that we not recuse our role as a legislative body to fight back against these things. So I'm very pleased to do this in partnership with Councillor Zakhem. I think it's important that government officials at every level denounce ideologies that hate or attack a person simply because of what color they are, who they love, where they were born, or where and how they worship. This is a reminder for us to daily do the work necessary to dismantle white supremacy. So it is a denouncing, but it is also a call to action, that we do this work in the policies we pass, in the conversations that we are a part of in public and private, whether bigotry or injustice, or a shout or a whisper, but that we will be united in solidarity in this work. Again, this resolution is in line with efforts made by our own State House colleagues. I urge all of my colleagues to sign on as we can speak with one voice that bigotry and hatred has no place in this city, and that we can all get back to the work of lifting up every Bostonian. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Presley. Councillor we so appreciate everyone that's here. It's standard council rules not to have any displays that will slow down our business or make it hard for anyone to hear. So thank you, but if we could just do silent clapping, that would be wonderful. Councillor Zakhem, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank Councillor Presley for her efforts and for allowing me to join with her on this resolution. I'm happy to do it. I'm sad that we have to do it, that we have to be saying something that seems so obvious, I think, to everyone in this room, that Nazism, that racism, that white supremacist movements are bad and are wrong in 2017 in the United States of America, but that's unfortunately what we're talking about. That's what's taking up the valuable time of this body. That's what's taking up the valuable time of the people, the 45,000 who marched over the weekend. That's what's taking up the valuable time of people across this country who are standing up and fighting for many of the same things that the folks in the pictures behind us started talking about several hundred years ago right in this city. We need to do it. We really need to do it. When we have a president that equivocates, that talks about maybe we don't have to condemn the Nazis, maybe we don't have to condemn the Ku Klux Klan, maybe we don't have to condemn white supremacy, maybe there's problems on both sides, he says. And I'm going to quote someone who I have very little agreement with politically, but Mitt Romney, who was very clear, and I'm paraphrasing, but that there is no equivalency. There is no equivalency. You cannot say that the Nazis have a point. You cannot say that let's hear both sides on this. So I'm proud to stand here with my colleagues, with Councilor Presley and others, to make sure that the City of Boston is joining with our partners at the state level, with the mayor, with the governor, with the state legislature, and with government officials across this country to stand up and say there's no place for this in the city, there's no place for this in the country, and we need to continue with making sure that we speak up with one voice on this. And unfortunately, there is a lot of work to do in this sphere. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zachem. Would councillors wishing to sign on please signal at this point? Madam Clerk, could you please add Councillor Baker's name, Councillor Siomo, Councillor Sabi George, Councillor Flaherty. Please add Councillor Linehan, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor O'Malley. Please add the chair's name. And now, would anyone like to speak on this matter? Councillor Jackson, you have the floor.
I want to thank Councillor Presley as well as Councillor Zachem again for this work. I just want to address those who say we should ignore them, those who say that we should not shed light or attention on them. We can't do that. And we've seen time and time again, when we don't address these issues head on, they continue to grow, they continue to expand, and they continue to hurt more people and systemically hurt people. And understand what we're talking about are isms. They're not actually, racism or being a racist is powerful because you're connected to a system of racism. Not only you as an individual, but because you are connected to systems in law, in housing, and employment that make it so. So we must, as Bostonians, the home of democracy in the United States, understand that we must lead and not follow when it comes to these issues. We must speak loudly. We must show up. We must stand up. And we must never, ever, ever be silent in the face of white supremacy, in the face of Nazis, in the face of hatred. Because if we are silent, then we are complicit. Please sign my name.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Madam Clerk, please add Councillor Jackson's name. And Councillor O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise obviously to thank the two makers, Councillors Zachem and Presley. Ask once again that my name be added. It is pretty stunning that in 2017, the Boston City Council is voting on a resolution condemning white supremacy and Nazism. But sadly, that's where we are. That's what we have to do after the events of the last several weeks. Like many of you, I spent some time at the Common on Saturday. I was struck by the sheer number of neighbors and friends who came out to repudiate discrimination, hatred, violence. I was unsurprised but grateful for the men and women of the Boston Police Department, the State Police Department, and other jurisdictions that came out that made it such a great success, that really exemplified community policing. And I will close with, I think, what the best sign I saw of that day was. I've been looking for an excuse to fit in a Game of Thrones reference this council year. And as both a history buff and a Game of Thrones fan, I will simply say, the North remembers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Malley. At this time, Councillors Presley and Zachem move for suspension and adoption of docket 1142. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on docket 1142?
Councilor Baker. Councilor Campbell. Councilor Siomo. Councilor Siomo, yes, and Councilor Baker, yes, I'm sorry. Councilor Asabi George. Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty. Yes. Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Jackson. Yes. Councilor Jackson, yes. Councilor LaMattina. Councilor Linehan.
Yes.
Councilor Linehan, yes. Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Presley. Councilor Presley, yes. Councilor Wu. Yes. Councilor Wu, yes. And Councilor Zachem. Yes. Councilor Zachem, yes. Madam President, docket number 1142 received unanimous passage.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Docket 1142 has been passed with an 11-0 vote.
Docket number 1143, Councilor O'Malley offered the following resolution recognizing and remembering Richard Laughlin O'Leary for his honorable service in Vietnam by dedicating the intersection of Forest Hill Street and Robinson Street in Jamaica Plain in his memory.
Councilor O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess we don't have too many Game of Thrones fans in the chamber with us today. I want to begin by thanking Peter Favorito, who was one of my interns. He's a student at Holy Cross this summer. He did much of the research on this. And very, very briefly, because I know we've been here a while, I'm introducing a resolution which I will ask for suspension and adoption of, commemorating the life of Richard Laughlin O'Leary. Richard was born and raised in Jamaica Plain, and at the age of 19, he enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps Reserves. That was in 1962. He quickly rose through the ranks and was commissioned a second lieutenant on July 1st, 1966, in his hometown of Boston. He was deployed shortly after that to fight in Vietnam, and on September 25th, 1967, which is 1 month from this Friday, which is 50 years ago, 1 month from this Friday, Richard's helicopter began to take enemy fire. It was struck. He was killed on his first air mission near Quang Tri, Vietnam. He left behind his loving wife, Mrs. Patricia O'Leary, who he married immediately following his graduation from Officers Basic School. One of the great joys that we get to do in this job is work with our Veterans Administration, our incredible commissioner, work with our returning veterans, particularly to honor those who have died in service, in establishing hero squares. This would establish a hero square in Lieutenant O'Leary's neighborhood, with the intersection of Forest Hill Street and Robeson Street in Jamaica Plain, a beautiful part of my district that many of you know well. And it's just a small but impactful, I believe, way to acknowledge just a true hero that gave the ultimate sacrifice in serving his city, his Commonwealth, and his country. I hope that during this difficult time in our country currently, we help shine a light of hope in this wonderful city in the form of this Hero Square Memorial for Lieutenant Richard Laughlin O'Leary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Would anyone like to sign on to docket 1143? Madam Clerk, could you please add Councilor Zachem, Councilor Presley, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor Linehan, Councilor Jackson, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Asabi George, Councilor Siomo, Councilor Baker. Please add the chair's name. Would anyone like to speak on this matter? At this time, Councilor O'Malley moves for suspension and adoption of docket 1143. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1143 has been adopted.
Docket number 1144, Councilors O'Malley and Wu offer the following resolution in support of extending MBTA Green Line streetcar service on Southampton Avenue from Heath Street to Hyde Square in Jamaica Plain.
Councilor O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. It was a pleasure, as always, to partner with you on this. I want to begin by thanking my Ward Fellow for the summer, Madison Toomey, who's with us today. She's a rising senior at Boston Latin School, did a tremendous amount of research on this initiative, so thank you, Madison. I rise today in order to urge our body to support the concept of extending the MBTA Green Line, the E-Line, service from Heath Street to Hyde Square to Canary Square, really, along the South Huntington Avenue. Last year, this body supported a resolution unanimously that designated the Hyde Square through Jackson Square as Boston's Latin Quarter. It's a neighborhood that reflects our city's rich cultural diversity with a history of decades of immigration from the Caribbean, Central and South America, one in which 65% of its businesses are owned and operated by immigrants. Extending streetcar service to this area will create a more accessible route for travel and will create an opportunity for new commuters to engage with various businesses within the neighborhood. The project would cover approximately 6/10 of a mile from the Heath Street train station into Hyde Square, but would absolutely relieve the pressure building on the 39 bus route. Today, the 39 is overcrowded, inconsistently adheres to its schedule, does not provide adequate service to the neighborhoods as it travels through. Streetcar service would more than double the capacity currently being served by an individual bus. Now, some of you may remember about 10 years ago, or probably longer than that, 15 or so years ago, there was a movement to extend the Heath Street Green Line all the way to Forest Hill Station. This does not do that. That would be a much more expensive proposal. The streets get a lot narrower. There wasn't as much support for this. This is quite different. It would extend the Green Line, the E line, through what's known as Canary or Cannery Square, depending on your pronunciation, and essentially make a loop. Now, it's important to do it now because we have thousands, literally thousands of new units of housing being built along that less than half or just about half a mile corridor. And the 39 bus, which runs through most of our districts, is something that is chronically underfunded and just has been a real issue. This would help alleviate a lot of their service. It's the right thing to do. Obviously good for the environment because it will encourage more people to use public transit. Council President Wu and I are asking today for suspension and adoption of this resolution as well, and we hope that we can get this a reality for the neighborhoods of back of the Hill and Jamaica Plain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Malley. Thank you for your leadership and the opportunity to partner. Would anyone like to sign on? Madam Clerk, could you please add Councilor Zacom's name and Councilor Presley? Councilor Baker, Councilor Sabi George, Councilor Siomo, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Jackson. And at this time, Councilor Malley moves for suspension and adoption of docket 1144. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1144 has been adopted.
Docket number 1145, Councilor Asabi George offered the following resolution declaring August 31st, 2017 Overdose Awareness Day in the City of Boston.
Councilor Sabi George, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today I rise to offer a resolution declaring August 31st Overdose Awareness Day in the City of Boston. As we know, substance use disorder is a growing epidemic. Like many diseases, substance use takes a toll on the person suffering and those who interact with them. Addiction knows no boundaries and crosses lines of income, color, education level, and neighborhood. 6 people die from opioid-related overdose every day. 196 people died in the city of Boston from accidental overdose in this last year. The scope of this problem is bigger than we often realize. 4 out of 10 Massachusetts residents know someone who has misused prescription painkillers in the last 5 years. That's 40%. So many of us in this room have been touched by substance use and those that suffer from it. And earlier today, we heard from 2 mothers who have experienced loss, both loss of life and loss of a loved one to the substance use disorder that they face. For those struggling with substance use disorders, battling stigma is another hurdle they must also face. Stigma may prevent someone from seeking help. Stigma may prevent someone from talking about the challenges they face and will continue to face. This is what Overdose Awareness Day is about, fighting stigma by embracing our community, showing support, and remembering those we have lost. Officially observing Overdose Awareness Day in the City of Boston is an important way for us to show that our city and the rest of the world are facing this crisis head-on. There are several events going on in the city around the observance of the Overdose Awareness Day, and I'd like to invite all of you to join me on City Hall Plaza, along with the Mayor and the Office of Recovery Services, as well as other community leaders, as we hold an interfaith ceremony honoring those impacted by overdose on October 31st from 5 to 6:30 p.m. This will also serve as the beginning of the City of Boston's Recovery Month, which will include programming through the month of September. I would also thank folks from Rosie's Place and other organizations that will also do some events. I'd like to thank Brittany Orange from my office, who's an intern from UMass Boston, for doing so much work to put together the ordinance and helping coordinating the events. Thank you, Brittany. And I move for suspension and ask for passage of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sabi George. Madam Clerk, please add Councilor Flaherty's name. Please add Councilor Siomo, Councilor Baker, Councilor Jackson, Councilor Linehan, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor O'Malley, Councilor Presley, Councilor Zachem. Please add the chair's name. At this time, Councilor Sabi George moves for suspension and adoption of docket 1145. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1145 has been adopted.
Docket number 1146, Councilor Jackson offered the following resolution calling for the removal of Georges Island Confederate Memorial.
Councilor Jackson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I am happy that our body is speaking loudly about the issues of our country, about Charlottesville, and about the unity and solidarity that we must have and the resolve that we must have. I will be seeking suspension and adoption. Councilor Presley eloquently noted that we need to be about the rejection of hate, bigotry, and white supremacy. Right on one of our islands, right off the coast of our borders, there is a monument, a statue that is memorializing the Confederacy. Interestingly, it was put forward in 1963 during the height of the Civil Rights Movement. The now defunct chapter of the United Daughters of the Confederacy erected a marker at Fort Warren on Georges Island memorializing soldiers who fought for the Confederacy's cause. We need to remove this, and we can send it back, return to sender. If those who put it forward would like it, then that's fine. We also stand with the governor on this. He said we should refrain from the display of symbols that do not support liberty and equality for the residents of Massachusetts. It has been boarded up, but this needs to be removed and relocated in our city and our time. So I will be putting this forward for suspension and adoption, and look forward to working with the United States Parks Department and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to remove the Confederate prisoner monument from Georges Island. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Madam Clerk, would you like to speak, Councilor Presley? Councilor Presley, you have the floor.
I wish to add my name. I thank Governor Baker and Councilor Jackson for their leadership. And I did just want to say symbols do matter. And while we are having a debate and going through the necessary steps to tear down the House of Hate, that we should also be thinking about what we will replace it with. And so I hope that this opens up a broader conversation about our monuments and our public art and our symbols to make sure that there is parity in representation of the contributions of women as well as people of color. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Presley. Madam Clerk, please add Councilor Presley's name. Please add Councilor Sabi George. Please add Councilor Zachem, Councilor O'Malley. Please add the chair's name. Please add Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Siomo, Councilor Baker, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor Linehan. Would anyone else like to speak on this? At this time, Councilor Jackson moves for suspension and adoption of docket 1146. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say, oh. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on docket 1146?
Councilor Baker. Yes. Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Campbell. Councilor Siomo. Yes. Councilor Siomo, yes. Councilor Sabi George. Yes. Councilor Sabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty. Yes. Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Jackson. Yes. Counselor Jackson, yes. Counselor Lamatina. Counselor Linehan.
Yes.
Counselor Linehan, yes. Counselor McCarthy. Counselor McCarthy, yes. Counselor O'Malley. Counselor O'Malley, yes. Counselor Presley. Counselor Presley, yes. Counselor Wu. Counselor Wu, yes. And Counselor Zachem. Counselor Zachem, yes. Madam President, the vote on docket number 1146 was unanimous with 2 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Docket 1146 has been adopted with an 11-0 vote.
Docket number 1147, Councilor Flaherty offered the following resolution supporting House Bill 3081, allowing for court orders to temporarily separate at-risk individuals from firearms.
Councilor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. All too often in our neighborhoods, we're seeing instances of gun violence taking place, and those settings range from parks and playgrounds, streets and sidewalks, homes, and even in our schools. That's why I'm presenting today a resolution that highlights House Bill 3081, sponsored by Massachusetts State Representative David Linsky out of Natick, which calls for allowing court orders to temporarily separate at-risk individuals from their firearms. This legislation, which is pending at the State House, would allow family and household members, police, district attorneys, healthcare professionals to go to court and seek extreme risk protection orders from individuals who pose a significant danger to themselves and others, particularly those who are suffering from mental health issues and or substance abuse issues. This legislation would allow judges to impose an immediate 10-day bar on the possession or purchase of guns and extend the order to a year after a full hearing. It should be noted that while this legislation has received criticism from gun rights advocates, House Bill 3081 contains robust due process provisions to ensure that the Second Amendment rights are respected. Similar laws are in place in Washington, Connecticut, and Indiana, and now the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has a chance to join this list. So at this time, I'd like to move for suspension of the rules and passage of the resolution so that the Boston City Council can go on record in support of House Bill 3081 offered by Massachusetts State Representative Dave Linsky, and cannot share with you the personal experiences from dealing with family and friends with respect to the opioid crisis, but also as a former assistant district attorney, and the correlation between those suffering from mental health issues and those suffering from substance abuse issues and the quantity of firearms that those individuals possess. And oftentimes it'll be a spouse or a child of those that are afflicted that will actually come forward because they know where the gun or the guns are in that particular home. And so we have a situation here where we're trying to minimize gun violence, but particularly those that are suffering from mental health and substance issues. We have an opportunity here through this House bill to allow the courts, judges in particular, to give them that opportunity to do a 10-day bar and potentially even further upon a full hearing of that individual's situation and rights. So urge my colleagues to sign on and would love to move for suspension and adoption. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Madam Clerk, could you please add Councilor Baker's name, add Councilor Siomo, Councilor Sabi George, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor O'Malley, Councilor Presley, Councilor Zachem, Councilor Linehan. Docket number, at this time, please add the chair's name. And at this time, Councilor Flaherty moves for suspension and adoption of docket 1147. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on docket 1147?
Okay. Docket number 1147, Councilor Baker. Yes. Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Campbell. Councilor Siomo. Councilor Siomo, yes. Councilor Sabi George. Councilor Sabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Jackson. Councilor Jackson, yes. Councilor Lamatina. Councilor Linehan.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Counsel Linehan, yes. Counsel McCarthy?
Yes.
Counsel McCarthy, yes. Counsel O'Malley?
Yes.
Counsel O'Malley, yes. Counsel Presley? Counsel Presley, yes. Counsel Wu? Yes. Counsel Wu, yes. And Counsel Zachem? Counsel Zachem, yes. Madam President, we have 11 votes in favor and 2 votes absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Docket number 1147 has been adopted with an 11-0 vote.
Docket number 1148, Councilor Wu offered the following order, creating the Special Committee on the Community Preservation Act.
This docket is a follow-on to the ordinance that the council passed at our last meeting, sponsored by Councilors Flaherty and Campbell, that created the process and procedures for the Community Preservation Committee. The director of whom is with us today, Christine Poff, who will be the administration's representative, or director for the committee. On the council side, as we've been saying throughout the process, we very much want the council to remain an engaged partner, and therefore we are entering, or I am officially asking the council to change our committee structure to add a special committee focused on the Community Preservation Act. The purpose of this committee will be first to help nominate the council's 4 seats to that committee in partnership with community, and then after that to continue to be the liaison and work with the CPC itself, the Community Preservation Committee, on public, open, transparent discussions on the allocation of those CPA funds. So you have the language before you. In order to change the City Council rules partway through the session, we do need a 2/3 affirmative vote. So I'm asking for suspension and passage, but we'll pause in case anyone has comment. Councilor Flaherty, would you like to add anything? Okay. Anyone else? Great. Then at this time, Chair moves for suspension and passage of docket 1148. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Do we need to take a... Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on docket 1148?
Thank you, Madam President. Councilor Baker? Yes. Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Campbell? Councilor Siomo? Councilor Siomo, yes. Councilor Asabi George? Yes. Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty? Yes. Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Jackson? Councilor Jackson, yes. Councilor LaMattina? Councilor Linehan?
Yes.
Councilor Linehan, yes. Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy, yes. Councilor O'Malley?
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Presley? Yes. Councilor Presley, yes. Councilor Wu? Yes. Councilor Wu, yes. And Councilor Zachem? Councilor Zachem. Madam President, docket number 1148 received 11 votes in the affirmative, 2 votes absent, therefore it's passed.
Thank you very much. For docket number 1148 has been passed with an 11-0 vote. I do want to mention there's going to be an accompanying late file to create a working group to advise the special committee now that it's officially created. But first we'll finish the formal agenda with personnel orders.
Thank you, I'm so sorry. Docket number 1149, Councilor Wu for Councilor Campbell. Offer
Chair
the
moves for
following
suspension
order.
and passage of docket 1149. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1149 has been passed.
Docket number 1150, Councilor Wu for Councilor Asabi George.
Councilor Sabi George moves for suspension and passage of docket 1150. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1150 has been passed.
All right.
And now we have, it's just the one that, right?
Yeah, and
Okay.
then on consent agenda.
Okay, great. So at this time, we have one item that is a late file, again, the working group, which I'll speak on, and then one item for the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, could you please read the late file matter?
Order of Council President Michelle Wu. Ordered that the Boston City Council hereby establishes a 90-day working group charged with assisting the Council's Special Committee on the Community Preservation Act. The working group shall assist the Special Committee to recruit and evaluate candidates for the Council's first 4 selections to serve on the Community Preservation Committee, including feedback on the development of an open and transparent application process and materials for interested candidates, preparation of evaluation criteria, assistance reviewing applications received, and recommendations for a representative and a diverse set of nominations. And be it further ordered that the working group shall be composed of residents of the City of Boston, including but not limited to representatives of the Yes for a Better Boston Coalition, representatives from the business community, and other stakeholders as determined by the chair of the special committee. And be it further ordered that the working group shall submit a report to the Boston City Council with recommendations within 90 days of its organization.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Again, now that the special committee is created, I'm asking the council to vote on this order to create a working group assigned to that special committee in consultation with advocates and with the sponsors of the original legislation, Councilors Flaherty and Campbell. It became clear that the first phase of work for the committee and for the larger effort will be different from the work to come, in that we are now composing the committee from scratch and also deciding what the application form looks like, how it's disseminated, how the outreach happens, and what the procedures are for selecting members. So this working group, again, similar to previous council working groups of a 90-day fashion, will report back, work with the special committee, and report back to the full council with recommendations. Any questions or comments? Oh, finally, I wanted to just mention that because it was a late file, this document wasn't available. We will make sure to put it online as soon as possible, but you heard the meat of it read into the record. It does formally recognize the Yes for a Better Boston Coalition as partners in this phase and as part of the working group, as well as representatives from the business community and other stakeholders as the chair will set. So at this time, the chair moves for suspension and passage of the first late file. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the first late file has been passed. Now we just need to approve the consent agenda with the additional late filed matter. Hearing no objection, the matter is added and chair moves adoption of the consent agenda. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Consent agenda is adopted. Would anyone like to pull a matter from the green sheets? Councillor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Docket 1000 from the Committee on Government Operations. That's on page 4 of 11.
Madam Clerk, could you please read docket 1000 into the record?
In the green sheets, in the Committee on Government Operations, docket number 1000, sponsored by the Mayor, message and ordinance amending Chapter 16, Section 12.3D of the City of Boston Code Ordinance governing advertising on freestanding signs, filed in the City Clerk's office on July 10, 2017, referred to committee on July 12, 2017.
Councillor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk and Madam President. Docket 1000 deals with the language that pertains to sandwich boards and sidewalk signs. The ordinance would remove the pilot program language and would make this regulation permanent. This is a matter that the City Council and the administration have been working on jointly over the last couple of years, along with other stakeholders that have been part of this conversation. In fact, Councilor Zakem has just recently offered an amendment that is currently under consideration by Inspectional Services. So, as Chair of the Committee on Government Operations, I'd like to move to reject this matter without prejudice so that the Mayor Walsh can refile it and the committee can have a little more time to review and call for a working session. Should be noted that if this matter is not rejected, the matter would automatically take effect on September 11, 2017. So we don't have enough time to call for a working session between now and then to entertain the amendments offered by our colleague, City Councilor Josh Zakem. So asking that we move to reject without prejudice. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councillor Flaherty. Any other comments? So, Madam Clerk, it's an affirmative vote to reject.
It's an affirmative vote.
So, Councillor Flaherty has made a motion to reject docket 1000 without prejudice. So, an affirmative vote would reject this ordinance. Counselor Flaherty makes that motion at this time. All in favor say of rejecting without prejudice.
I'm sorry, point of order, Madam President. I just want to make sure, because I know Councilor Zachem had to step out. So this would simply, through you to the chair, this would simply remove this from the docket because it's time sensitive, but would allow parties to come back and work on something this calendar year.
Exactly. It's listed in the council green sheets under 60-day orders because it came from, it
I
was
see.
originated from the mayor, so our clock is running out on action for it.
Okay, thank you.
Is that correct, Councilor Flaherty? Anything to add? Great. So again, all in favor of rejecting without prejudice, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and docket 1000 has been rejected without prejudice. And I had seen another flag for the green sheets. Councilor Siomo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to ask for a second vote on docket 1001 on page 2 of the green sheets under assigned for further action and for the further detail on page 10 of 11.
Thank you, Councilor Siomo. Madam Clerk, could you please read docket 1001 into the record?
Thank you, Madam President. On the green sheets in the Committee on Ways and Means, 1001, sponsored by the Mayor, message and order approving an appropriation of $600,000 for the purpose of paying for the costs of a feasibility study and schematic design work associated with projects at the following schools: East Boston High School, boiler replacement; O'Donnell School, K-5, boiler replacement; Sumner School, K-5, boiler replacement; Timilty Middle School, boiler replacement; Tobin School, K-8, boiler replacement; Up Academy, K-8, window replacements; and the Russell School, K-5, roof replacement. This includes the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, and for which the City of Boston may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, known as MSBA. Said amount to be expended under the direction of the Public Facilities Department on behalf of the Boston Public Schools. It was referred to committee on July 12, 2017. It received its first vote on August 2nd, 2017, and was referred for further action.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor Siomo, you have the floor.
Thank you again. As the clerk just read, we had our first affirmative vote on August 2nd, and now we need to take our second vote in order to appropriate the $600,000 necessary to provide for the funding for the schematic design. We are in line to receive up to 65% reimbursement from the Mass School Building Authority. So I urge my colleagues to vote in the affirmative again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Siomo. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on docket 1001?
Thank you, Madam President. Docket number 1001, Councilor Baker. Yes. Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Campbell. Councilor Siomo. Yes. Councilor Siomo, yes. Councilor Asabi George. Yes. Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty. Yes. Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Jackson. Yes. Councilor Jackson, yes. Councilor LaMattina. Councilor Linehan. Yes. Councilor Linehan, yes. Councilor McCarthy. Yes. Councilor McCarthy, yes. Councilor O'Malley. Yes. Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Presley. Yes. Councilor Presley, yes. Councilor Wu.
Yes.
Councilor Wu, yes. And Councilor Zachem. Madam Clerk, docket number 1001 received 10 votes in the affirmative and 3 votes absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Docket number 1001 has received an affirmative second reading with a 10-0 vote and has been passed. This time we'll pause for any statements to the group or announcements. Councilor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I think everybody noticed the book that I gave them on their tables. I gave that book. Today is my mother's 1-year anniversary, and after she had passed, I read this book. I commented on it a little bit when I eulogized my dad. It's not a parenting guidebook. Anybody that's driven home with their children for the first time, like when I first drove home with my wife and our twins, like what goes through your head is just an amazing thing, because you're actually responsible for those people that are in the back, because they're actual people. So I wanted my colleagues to just kind of read through this a little bit. It's not this is the right way or the wrong way. It just kind of goes through what different people in different socioeconomic backgrounds, the way people are raising their children. And I have to also give a shout out to my wife, because she was raised by a single parent, and she had the wherewithal to really be a sponge. When she was in college, she babysat for a lot of upper middle class, rich people, their families, and she watched what the parents were doing. And now she does a lot of that stuff with our kids, and I need to thank her for that. But more, I just want to talk about my mother, praise my mother. She came here with a 5th grade education and told us the most important thing to ever do for anybody or any situation is bring love into the situation. And you don't necessarily, and when I say love, I don't mean love in that way, love, I mean a respect and a love of humans and a love of what we're doing, and I think it allows us to be fair and balanced and to be able to listen to the other side all the time. I think a lot of our issues that we're having in the country now may be based on people not being able to get at the table and talk to people. I don't necessarily always agree with everybody, but I'm always going to sit in front of somebody and listen to what they have to say. So it's my parents' 1-year anniversary. Like you guys know, they died right near each other. I'm still suffering through it a little bit, but that's just a gift from my parents to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. At this time, I'd like to ask all councilors and guests to please rise. Today, the council will adjourn our meeting in memory of the following individuals. For Councilor Siomo, Priscilla A. Falter, Josephine Leiden, and Dr. John D. Miola Sr. For Councilor Jackson, Dick Gregory, Heather Heyer of Charlottesville, and Jerry Lewis. For Councilor LaMattina, Raymond Sonny Coppola and Damian Perez. And for Councilors Jackson and Presley, Nakika Taylor. A moment of silence, please. And for Councilor Jackson as well, Michael Miranda, brother of Liz Miranda. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. Chair moves that when the council adjourns today, we do so in memory of the aforementioned individuals. We're scheduled to meet again Wednesday, September 13th at 12 noon at Faneuil Hall. All in favor of adjournment say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Council is adjourned.
I doubt